foxtv.com, and we're glad you're here. And we're going to be here for the next hour. As you know, we come on at 2 o'clock. We stay at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Mondays. And we are glad that we have the listening ship and the viewership that we have. Our numbers are growing, and so I want you to stay tuned to all things to do here at allpointstv.com. We're trying to bring you some of the best alternative programs in the country. I'm not going to say we succeed every time we go on the air, but give us an A for, let's see, what is the A for? Well, give us an E for effort. And we are going to continue to put forth our best efforts to be the program that, and also the network that's up there with some of the major ones, the ones I think are major. I think number one, quote unquote, is Newsmax. And then you have to have these others. There's a station over there I don't talk about. I do go through there and watch what they're doing sometimes, and that's the. I think they call themselves One, the One network. They're a conservative station. They don't get as many viewers as Newsmax, but they are really up and coming. And if Fox doesn't watch itself, it's going to be replaced because it's really getting to the point right now where it's hard to watching the programs over there. They're looking a lot more to me like CNN, if you can believe that. And I don't know where they're going with their programming. Let's see who they have over there now, because they got rid of so many of the ones that were the heavyweights. When you get rid of people like Tucker, and Tucker Carlson was one of he was the number one. The lead in to Hannity was really Tucker Carlson's program. And the viewership was going up around that time period. We talked about the 7 to about 10, 11 o'clock at night, that time period. Carson's program was leading into Hannity's program. You really had Waters. Well, Waters was later. Waters is the one who took Carson's place. But you had Tucker Carlson 8 o'clock. You had Hannity at 9, and they kind of dominated that 3-hour window. That's a very major part of the program, because the advertisers like to come in the after you have had done and you're settling down, you want to watch programs. They do a lot of advertising in the later, the later evening or the early evening programming, and they got rid of some of those heavyweights over there. Now I'm not sure where they're going, but if they don't watch themselves, they're going to have some advertising problems, because the ones that are trekking over to these other networks, they're not the only kids in the block anymore. At one time, you would say, well, Fox was out there as the number one conservative network. I'm not sure you can say that anymore, because I think Newsmax, and I'm looking at all the ones they have over there, it's amazing how many persons they have over there. Some of them have come from Fox. And at one time, they thought that Carson would have been something if he had gone over to Newsmax. But I think Carson had enough of this networking when he came from Fox, and he now wants his own. He wants his independence. So now he's doing the podcast. He's doing well in the podcast he's doing. I don't think he has surpassed Joe Rogan's podcast program, but he's up there in terms of the viewership. I guess it's working for him, but he was really, I thought that he was really the center of the attention that Fox was bringing. He was bringing to Fox. And when they got rid of him, to me that network went down. I don't think it's being revived by Hannity either. And I'm looking more and more askings at what's going on Saturdays and Sundays with Mark Levine's program. And that's not going as well as it could go. I couldn't believe what Mark Levine did this past Saturday. We was having a program. I'm still trying to figure out, trying to sell us, this whole thing about the blue states and the red states. We're supposed to go with these politicians because they're better in the red states than the blue states. And you can sell that to a lot of people, but I'm not buying a lot when it has to do with these politicians, because we got a problem with these politicians as a class of people on both sides of the political aisle, and whether they are blue states, heading red states or whatever. I admit that the blue states are more out of kilter what we should be doing here in this country and what's called for in the constitutional mandates and restrictions we have in our documents. But neither party is really doing anything along the lines of what was really intended by the framers. And that's how I judge them. I don't think any of them are really doing anything to write home about. I came to the studio today to talk about something that's now being brought up in the aftermath of this shutdown that we've had, again, engineered by these politicians. And even though the Democratic Party had came out and said, quite frankly, that this shutdown was their attempt to get leverage. They didn't have, because they don't have the leverage in the government based on their numbers. They're a minority party in the House. They're a minority party in the Senate, and they don't have the executive branch of government. So they don't have any numbers that would allow them to ensure their voice is going to be the last. They're going to be the last one standing, and their voice is going to be the last word at the table, because they don't have the numbers to actually bring that result about. And they've admitted that this shutdown was because they wanted to gain leverage that they didn't have, because they don't have any leverage in terms of the numbers. I think the numbers are in the Senate, that 53 of the 100 members in the Senate are Republicans, Republican Party. I don't. Let me rewind that. The members of the Republican Party, there are no Republicans in the Republican Party. They are Republican Party members. And there are no Democrats in the Democratic Party. These are Democratic Party members. And we need to stop saying Democrats and Republicans as if those words don't have some meaning, and as if they are towing the line of what that really means to be a Democrat or to be a Republican. Because every time they get to a point where it's about if you say that you believe the majority voice should be in terms of the vote, and that should be the prevailing voice. Well, look at how they try to frustrate that. And people could understand what I was saying in my writing, that yes, the Democratic Party would have instigated this latest shutdown because they wanted leverage, but they're not the ones that kept it going. Because the Republican Party could have, through a majority vote, have shut the opposition party down in terms of trying to use leverage that they didn't have by the numbers. They could have shut that down by having majority vote to change the rule, where it wouldn't take a 60 vote cloture to bring about cloture in the Senate. And they like to do stuff like that. They like to be able to say that it's the other party that's doing it, and they didn't have 60 votes in the Senate, so therefore the shutdown is prolonged, and they didn't have the numbers to stop it, and so on and so forth. They had the numbers to stop it by going in a circuitous route around it to stop it, by taking a vote on whether they want to change the rule from 60 votes to bring about closure, and making a majority voice which is what the voters really, I mean, what do voters vote for? They vote for one of the two parties to be in charge. And if they do that by one vote, that one vote, it means that they voted for them more than they voted for the other party, and that party therefore should take charge of the instances of government. But they love these quagmires where they can claim that they have they have good intent and they want to do the right thing by the American people. They want to represent us out here, and there's other parties who won't let them do it, but they keep a pure intent to what they want to do, and this other party will just keep on stopping them. And yeah, you can look into that, and you can say that that's certainly what they say. But you go behind the rhetoric and you look at the facts, and you see if they pull out all the things that if they play all the cards they had at their disposal, and if not playing all the cards, and they have some cards to play and not putting them on the table to play them, then they might not have initiated the shutdown, but then the continuation of it is on them, not on the Democrats. They don't have the numbers to do the continuation. The Republican Party had the votes for the continuation, although the initiation of the shutdown would have been through the 60 vote needed to bring about the closure and then bring the question to the forum in the Senate. They didn't have the 60 votes to do that. That's true. But you have to understand that they did have the majority vote to then change that rule where it wouldn't take 60 votes. So let's go back to the fact that majority rule stands as the order of the day because the voters went to the polls and they voted for this party as opposed to the other party. And they put that party in charge by whatever number of votes they are in charge by. That's the party that's in charge right now. And I blame the Republican Party for the continuation of the shutdown. This is the longest shutdown we've had. We've had the two longest shutdowns we've had have been during the Trump administration. This is just continuing to try to stop this man. They've been shutting down the government on a regular basis ever since Trump has taken office because they do not want his plan to get through. Because if it gets through and he does the things that he's been advocating to do, then a lot of people are going to be wondering about whether or not these persons is inside the Beltway and have been there all this time, whether or not we really need to have these politicians getting up there and staying up there as if that is intended for a career. That's why I came to the studio today to talk about the term limits. But I'm not going to be talking about it the way everybody else is talking about it, is saying that we need term limits and we need to we need everybody's writing on Facebook and in some of the other social channels out there. They talking about how we need to have term limits. I wrote about it in my post. Every office in this country, every political office in this country is term limited. If you are in the Senate, the term limit of a senator in the Senate now, the term limit is 6 years. That's a term limit. It's set in the Constitution. 6 years. After 6 years, your term is over. And in the House Representative, their term is 2 years, and the president is limited to a 4-year term. That's the end of the term. The problem is not the term limits. That's what I wrote about today in my post. The problem is the people keep voting for them to undo the limited term that's imposed by the framers, because the framers were not intended to be putting in the kings in power. And that's where in every one of those offices, they start putting a limit on what you're going to do when you get in power. You're not going to get in there and just stay in there. They didn't intend about any of that. And so they wanted to say that here's the number of years they are in this term that they're elected to, and this is how many years that term has in it. The problem is that the people have delimited the term limit by voting for them and voting in spite of the term limit, continuing to vote for them anyway.
Look at the Dingell family here in Michigan.
I got it right here.
God, almost 80 years of unchecked.
They won't leave, John. They won't leave. You know, John, I brought this, I wanted to show the viewers. I want you to see what was happening in our Congress, so that you would not be out here talking about we need to do term limits. We got term limits. You tell what this discussion you're having is about is that we cannot trust the power in the hands of the people to be used in their own interests. In other words, the people are voting against themselves by delimiting what is the limited terms put in place by the framers. The framers put terms in place, and they made sure that that in representatives of the states, which is what they were at that convention, they would represent the states. And when they put those terms in place there, they made sure that the representative of the state had more years in the term that they assigned than the president of the United States had, because the president has 4 years. His term he has a 4-year term. The senators have a 6-year term, and the reason why they have a 6-year term is because the senators were intended to represent the states, and the states were the ones that were delegating all this power in these other arenas. And so in their disaggregation of power away from themselves, they being the ones in charge, because the fact of the matter is that the Constitution is set up by the representatives of the states who were sent there. They did something other than what they were sent there to do, but they were speaking in the name of the states. And they drew up a document they had to carry back to the states. Whatever they did there, whether they went against the mandate or the particulars of why they went there, because I've said before on the air that they had an intent that was in the public intent, and there was some underlining themes that they went there with as well. And some of them had already determined that they're going to go in there and do something other than what they've been sent there to do. And because they had realized that what was in place, it was impossible to be done. They understood the intent of what was in place and why it was in place, but they knew it could not work out the way it was intended based on the way it was in fact structured, where government was in fact to be under control by not being able to do anything. And they knew that could not. You have to give government power to act. But you're right in terms of the action, you must be able to restrict. You have to find a way to allow the government to act and at the same time restrict it from acting. And in that seeming paradox, which is in Federalist Paper 51, that James Madison was talking about in that particular paper. Yeah, the government must be able to act, but you have to also, in terms of it acting, to make sure that its acting does not act in such a way is that it goes beyond the pale and gets out of control. You don't want to have the government doing that. And they had enough of that with King George III. That's why they were, in fact, picking up arms against him and staying out on the battlefield for 7 years. When they said they were leaving and they were not going to stay inside of the British Empire any longer, and the British were saying that that would not prevail. Their determination was they would prevail, because one of the things they would not do is they would not stop fighting. If you don't quit, and that's what the nation was born because the nation they were determined to bring this nation into existence as an independent nation, and they would not stop. But they didn't want to go back into what they had come out of, and so they're not going to be talking about a king. You can forget this about Donald Trump wants to be a king. You can forget that. That's out of here. We shot that out of here from 1776 to 1783, and we didn't stop shooting until we got an agreement where they now want to meet over in France and sign a treaty, and that treaty was to be signed among the 13 with each of those 13 states. They had to come to an agreement with what the terms were, and those terms were very concrete in terms of this: no kings. And that 2, 4, and 6 year term that was set up at that time was to regulate that along that line. We're not going to have anybody in power, and they're not subjected to being under the auspices of the people who are to be the rulers of the United States. We, the people of the United States, and we're there to form a more perfect union, but we're not here. I don't think I read anywhere in there where it says we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, but we want to also set up a king next to it. They were not going to set up a king, and that's why they set up the term limits, and it's already limited. Terms already limited. Our problem is not the term limits. Our problem is that we don't have, what we're talking about doing now, we talk about term limits because we don't want to really talk about the real issue. The real issue is that we don't have a discipline, we do not have a discipline, what was the word I use here? We don't have a bright, the American people are not, they're very good people, very charitable, very giving, and all the rest. But we're not a very bright country. We're not a very smart country. And what people are saying when they say they need term limits, they're saying that they do not. What they're really saying is they do not believe you can put this power in the hands of the people, and they will be, in fact, making use of it in a way in which it benefits the country through their use of this power. And they're asking to take this power out of their hand and make it mandatory. They do what they should do, where it shouldn't have to be a mandatory thing. You vote your interest. It's not your interest. You're voting for people like Zoran Mamdani over in New York, and voting for the rest of these persons that you have in the Congress, and voting them over and over again. I wrote a one-page printout of the top. This one has the top 18 members of Congress that have served the longest. Now really, if I copied the whole thing out that had those members that had served the longest, I would have gone down to 122. with the number of years that have been served, the longest being down there at the cutoff point at that point would be 36 years. In other words, we if you think about that for a minute, members of the House are elected to a 2-year term. And John was mentioning a few minutes ago, he's mentioning Dingell. Okay, here's John Dingell. John Dingell, who passed in 2019. He finally stepped down and retired. But some of them on this list here, some of them died in office. Would not leave. Dingell, at the top of the list of the ones that have served the longest in Congress, and he served his whole time in the House, and the number of years he served I don't want to say served, the number of years he was in office was 59 years and 21 days. Now think about that for a minute. 59 years and 21 days. And so the term of a member of the House, he served in the House all of his time in Congress. Now there's some that on this list here, they served some of the time in the House, but the House come back to the voters every 2 years, and so it's kind of like you run, and after you have run and been reelected, you're almost running again at that very point, because you have to go up for re-election again in 2 years. So you're actually spending most of your time actually running for office. Think about if you were in office for 59 years and 21 days, and you were only in the House or represented that whole time for 59 years and 21 days. Think about just the amount of time that you're spending just running for the office. Getting revved up to do what? To be reelected. And Dingell has a record, 59 years this man was in the House of Representatives, 59 years and 21 days. Now that's, some of that has got to be put on these voters. And that's what I want. That's what I was trying to concentrate on in my post today about these term limits. I'm not going to let people get off the hook and act like there are no, that their terms are not limited. The terms are limited. Every official in this country has a term limit. The problem is they keep on returning them so that the term limit is being delimited by the voters returning the power over and over and over again. And I guess they're expecting a different result than what they've gotten, because they're not getting good results. I don't know. I don't know of anything. Dingell was up there 59 years and 21 days. I don't know anything that has Dingell's name on it. And I don't think when he left after 59 years, 21 days, I don't think there was anybody calling for a street to be named after him because of the impact he had as a member of Congress. Because actually, when you're in the House of Representatives, your voice is pretty much drowned out. You got 435 members in the House of Representatives, and what kind of voice are you having in a body that you could justify 59 years and 21 days in that body, as Dingell did when he finally stepped down? He did step down, but then that office is still in the family name. His wife took over the position after he stepped down, and I guess when she leaves, then it'll be the Dingell name is enough in that district. And I was saying in a post that I did a couple of weeks ago that one of the things that we're gonna have to, we got to see. Probably got to fix some problems for a change. They don't fix anything, but they got to get out of this quagmire, this debilitating condition that they're in, where they don't fix anything. Just simply just things just trod down the same trails and nothing changes. Nothing is in. You don't intervene, which would require leadership to do that. But somewhere we're going to have to understand that what they're doing in terms of this 2-year thing is they get into this district where they can get someone. They stand in front of people who in that little small cubby hole of the state has a similar outlook that the leader can stand in front of, and they just run roughshod over the rest of the people, and they just simply make these decisions outside of their influence because they only have influence in a very small part, of the state. I mean, you're talking about 435 members, so look at how many person we're talking about in the different states. In California, let's see, California has 53 electoral votes now. They lost some votes because of the people, those U-Hauls going one way. Those U-Hauls are heading toward Texas. They're heading toward Florida. Not just those states. They're heading toward Tennessee. They're heading toward states that don't have this government, this government overrun. The government hands in everything, and the government is too intrusive. And they're going to states where the government doesn't. You don't have the amount of intrusion. It's too much intrusion throughout the country, but you don't have any limits almost on government in California. And look at New York. They're getting ready to get some real. They getting ready to see some over in New York. I don't know what they were thinking, but I know what they're going to get because this guy has already told them what he is, and he is not backing down from it. He was talking. He was really talking to them about what his mindset is. His mindset is that what really his mindset is. This man is a jihadist. This man is going to institute jihad in this country through a backdoor approach. He's not going to be out here with any guns or anything, but he's going to do the same. He's going to do the unmanning of country within the power center that he is now going to be in once he is inaugurated into office. And that is going to be a very, very painful experience. But you look at these people that have been in these offices this period of time. Dingell has a record. What did Dingell do, you think, in 59 years and 12 and 21 days?
I mean, it just floors me. By the way, we had a comment. Patrick Harper says, "Good day, Mr. Moss. Just sick of you. Glad to see you. Wishing you a fine day." So
I appreciate
pass
you
that
too.
on to you. So
I appreciate you so much. You'd be surprised how many persons call me and curse me out every day. I'm not going to change anything. I mean, they can. I don't get mad about it. That's their feel. That's their view. I'm not trying to change their view about it. I'm going to do what I have to do here. I wish somebody would call and tell me where I'm speaking beyond the evidence and make that criticism. I don't ever get that criticism. The criticism I get is that I can't believe you said that. Well, okay, I'm saying it, and what I'm saying here is that you look at these persons that have these the first sheet of how many years they served in terms of the longevity in Congress. On the first sheet, down to number 18, and I could have gone to 122, and that would be at the 122 mark. The longevity would have been 36 years at that point. At number 17, the uninterrupted longevity of the members of Congress would have been on the, it's the first page now, 46 years and 0 days. And you know who that person is? Charles Rangel. Charles Rangel. From Harlem. 46 years this man was in that office. And what does anybody name a street after Rangel? The man was in there for 46 years. Anybody name a street after this man? I mean, not that you got to have a street named after you, but I'm saying, what did this man? What justifies 46 years? That's 23 different elections. He finally retired. Rangel died Rangel died this year. Man was born in what year was he born? 1930. So he lived to be 95 years old. I mean, what's the point of this man being in? I mean, what do you think was the amount of wisdom this man had, the leadership qualities that he had, and what was the grounding point that if we did not have him in there for, let me make sure I'm making this right, 46 years, what would be the justification for keeping somebody in there? These are 2-year term. The term of a member of the House is 2 years. What in the world would a person have to do outside of not walking on water to be of such value to the voters? He'd be in a representative body for 46 years. Now, Dingell was 59. I'm sorry, 50. Yeah, 59 years, 21 days. Let me read some of these other names on here. You tell me which one you think is a heavyweight. We just can't do without them now. They're up there serving. They're up there. I said serving. Rewind that on both sides. Rewind it on this side here, and rewind on that side there, and don't get my tongue twisted. We're not talking about service here. We're talking about these persons being in office. What would justify? I listen to when it became on TV. I try to tune him in. I want to see if he's saying anything different this time than he said last time. We used to have him on there all the time. And Charlie Rangel didn't know. Charlie Rangel was not a thinker. And I don't know of anything that this man. Not that I'm looking for him to be passing a whole lot of legislation anyway, but I don't know anything that had his name on that was consequential. To my 46 years that he was up there in the House. Some of the others up there. Get this now. This man was both in the House and in the Senate. His total amount of being in the Congress, this is Byrd, Robert Byrd. You might remember Byrd from West Virginia because Byrd was the one that had the record of the longest filibuster of any person in the Senate. He had the record for the filibuster because this man filibustered the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. And what Booker was doing, Cory Booker from New Jersey, you know, people don't know this. Booker was in the state and was involved in the cover-up of the person that came out of that state, out of New Jersey, New Jersey, that were involved in the assassination of Malcolm X. The person with that shotgun that was in the Alderman ballroom from that was from that district that Cory Booker they started his career in. I'm not saying he's involved in it himself. I'm saying that he was around those kinds of people and so on and so forth. And he knows this man that had that shotgun in the Alderman ballroom when Malcolm X was killed, because that's the kind of criminality that we're talking about among these politicians who man that kind of field. These are not your Sunday school teachers that's up there in Washington. I'm just telling you, these are not the people you think that they are. And what Cory Booker was doing when he's up there filibustering for 25 hours and 5 minutes, he was trying to beat the record of Byrd, Robert Byrd, who's the dean of the Senate. Byrd had been up there for 57 years, 176 days in the Senate and in the House. He was in both bodies, but after leaving the House, he went into the Senate and became the longest serving member in the Senate. His total amount in the Congress was 57 years. He had the record on the filibuster, number of hours in the filibuster. You can read about it in the book called Pillars of Fire by this great writer, this great historian of the civil rights movement, who wrote four books, mammoth books on the civil rights movement. Pardon the Waters was the first of the 4 volumes from 1954 to 1963. Volume 1, that's Pardon the Waters. Pillars of Fire, and that book needs to be read, particularly the first part of it, because it clears up a lot of things. Taylor Branch's book. Taylor, you have to read. You get to read this book. This man's book. Taylor Branch. A major writer. And I think Taylor Branch should be up there with the man that wrote that book, the one that wrote Bearing the Cross. That writer. Let's see, what is his name? That was really like the Bible of the civil rights movement. But Taylor Branch's book, I think, has surpassed what I mean. He used a lot of the work there, but he surpassed what was done in that work. I'm trying to think of the author's name of that book, but I will tell you this: when you look at these politicians, I'm talking about Cory Booker here. These are not these people pass themselves off as being so concerned about this really kills me. They play these racial politics that they're on black people's side, but not the other people. They're on your side. And if you have if you have friends like Cory Booker, I don't think you need any enemies. You can tell a lot of people by the company they keep. And if part of your company is people like Cory Booker, you don't tell me a whole lot more because this man is not Spartacus. This man is a total fraud. I don't want to pull any punches here. People are standing in front of people talking about this and that, but what this man was doing in that filibuster was making sure that when you think about the filibuster in the future, you would not be thinking about Robert Byrd, who had the record prior to Booker doing his stonewalling. He wasn't saying anything. He was just simply just talking and not making any point, not saying anything. He never says anything. This is not a very smart man. I mean, I listen to him. When I listen to this man, I have to kind of have one ear tune in and kind of one ear kind of not so much tune in. I cannot stomach too much rhetoric coming out of these politicians' mouths. And every time I look up, they have these politicians on TV like they're gonna tell us something, like we're gonna learn something from them. And Cory Booker, I don't know where. I like to go. I worked in New Jersey back in 1965, I think it was, in Bridgeton, New Jersey. I was out there in those tomato fields. Yeah, I was out there. First, I was out there picking tomatoes, and then I worked in the tomato. I worked at the Hunt's Tomato Company when I got inside of the factory. That's how I went. That's how I paid my college. But then the government came in and did what it always does. It comes in and it claims that we won't do that kind of work. But if you're paying people, that's all I got this morning. If you're paying people not to work and you are giving them a free ride where they don't have to do anything to get a free ride, then you think they're gonna go out there and do the kind of back breaking stuff? I picked tomatoes, and I also worked in also worked in canning Hunt's tomato paste, and I did all of that, and I did it in Bridge, New Jersey. So I kind of know the layout pretty much from that standpoint. And I will tell you that what Booker was doing was a cover up because this man was trying to make sure, because blacks are leaving the plantation now, so they want to make sure that you don't think about, well, Byrd filibustered the Civil Rights Bill, and yet they're trying to hold on to the blacks are now, that it's not the few, but the one, they don't have 94% like they once did, 96%. If they get down to 80%, that party's in trouble. They need 90%, a 90% block of black voters for the Democratic Party to run the table. And they're gonna definitely need that in 2028 when the vice president gonna be the candidate on the Republican side. And if the Republican ticket, if it doesn't keep doing this fall off that they're doing, it should run pretty strong because the Democratic Party has pretty much shown its colors, and it's going to have a lot of problems. But they don't want you to think about the filibuster with Byrd, because they're trying to say that that's a party that blacks should be involved in, and blacks are involved in that party. They're trying to brag about that Donald Trump got 15% of the vote. And that's supposed to be something to brag about. Ann Coulter had a great article about that. She was talking about, well, can you imagine the ANC in South Africa bragging about Mandela's party? Can you imagine them bragging about if they got 10%, 15% of the white vote in South Africa? No, the ANC is solidifying their vote around the Hausa group. And that one guy, I've been in South Africa, 3 times? Well, I think I've been there 3 times. I was there when the president was inaugurated in 2009. I was there. I didn't go there for that. But I was there when he was inaugurated, and they all had there's all this, everybody got this idea when you get the next one in. He wasn't in before, but he's in now, and hallelujah, is going to be a difference and all the rest. These are politicians, and you have to understand that they're all a dime a dozen. And you got to stop thinking you just change the bodies, and then the person that is housed in the seat now got a different name. Therefore, the politics will be different. They're all in there as they're not in there as paymaster. In there as the payees. And the payers are the ones with the money that go there to influence what they do when they get in power, so they can determine how they walk when they get into the presidential office or the senatorial office, any political office, because all of them are paid and they're bought and paid for. If you don't think the politicians in this country are bought and paid for, you don't know what's going on in this country, because that's exactly how politics operates. Go read the book called Organized Crime by De Lorenzo. I thought that he was talking about he wasn't about the mafia, but he's about not the mafia, the Cosa Nostra mafia. He's about the mafia, FBI, the mafia, CIA, the mafia, DIA, and the rest of them. These 3-letter organizations in the government. Those are mafia units also. If you think that they are more legitimate because they're behind the badge of the government, they are more illegitimate because they're using the power of the state to do vulgar and illicit, illegal things. They're running in the name of the people and doing illegal things right in front of our face, but behind our back as well, because we think these people are representing us. Newsmax, you did a good job last night on that program you did in terms of the FBI. You did exposure through this wonderful host you have over there. Smith did a very good job. FBI abuse and so on. These people, these are not your Sunday school. These are not your these are not your Sunday school type. In those offices. Byrd was in number 2 in terms of how many years he was in Congress. 57 years, 176 days. The dean of the Senate. What was Byrd doing in the Senate? I know what Cory Booker was trying to do, cover it up, because Byrd was a Kleagle in the Klan up until the time he was 46 years old. Byrd died when he was 92 years old. So at 46 years of age, then that means half the man's life, he was at that at the midpoint of this man's life. This man's a Kleagle in the Ku Klux Klan. That means you wearing one of those those cone-like hats. And Cory Booker was covering that up, and they want to talk about this man is Spartacus. This man not Spartacus. This man is a semi-member.
That right there just shows you that he was just concerned about being in power. The whole world changed around him. He just morphed. I mean, he was so vehemently opposed to blacks and integration and all this. He was a Klansman, but when it happened, he just served that side too. I mean, he just did. I mean, I would have paused. I mean, I would have had more appreciation for him if you would say, "I can't be part of this," and left office or not sought the
Yeah.
re-election. But no, I mean, he was okay with anything that went around, just as long as he kept power.
That's right, John. These persons don't care about representing the American people. In fact, you could count the number of persons in the Congress right now that represent the American people probably on one hand.
Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yep, that's the only two that I know.
I was stunned, John, that they had some fallout with them, because the ones that are more serious, and you talk about more serious, but let's face it, there are not a lot of them in Washington that's really serious about the job they've been assigned to do. They're not doing the job they've been assigned to do. They're up there going along to get along, and they're getting paid and so on and so forth. And they're going to be, when they step down, they're going to be like, they may not be as bad as Nancy Pelosi, but they're all doing what Nancy Pelosi was doing, but not to the tune that she's doing it. That woman came out, I think when she stepped down, mercifully, her wealth was $135 million. You think you can get it's impossible to amass $135 million on the salary of a member of Congress at $174,000 a year. It's impossible to amass that kind of money unless you're getting paid under the table.
Look at Dan Crenshaw when people brought that up about making they're being able to use insider information, and he just looks so contemptuous. Like we're not allowed to make profit off of this.
That's the guy.
The eye patch.
Yeah.
Arr, he looks like I can't. Every time they ask him a question,
Yeah.
he just he looks like he's like smelling something like somebody's holding a little turd underneath his nose. Like I can't believe you asked that of me. I can't put up. He's an arrogant ass.
He really is. I've been very disappointed. I thought, given his service, and I guess the injury that he had, and why he's wearing that patch is because the injury he had in battle. They a lot of them do this. They will serve, and then they'll use their service as a way of now justifying that they should, since they defended the nation, we then owe them payback. People will vote for them.
That was standard in the Roman world too. That the generals would be going to politics, and they'd have their past, victories, like always red as they came up on stage or whatever. Everybody knew about their past military records and their campaigns they had been involved in. But I've had, by the way, I do have from good authority from several veterans. We don't have to like Dan Crenshaw because he got injured in battle, because he's still a jerk. Okay, we could still criticize him.
Yeah, I've been very disappointed in Crenshaw. I thought that he was going to go up there and do something because of his military service, and I thought there was a certain amount of commitment that would show. And they become politicians and use that really as a jump off point to get into the political arena. But no, he's been very, very big disappointment. And I think it's time for him to think about not being on this list here that I'm reading from. This person have all this longevity in the Congress. Bird, you were covered up. They covered up for you in terms of now. Cory Booker has the longest record for filibustering the Senate, so it won't be you anymore. But you right behind Cory Booker. And Booker was doing that in order to throw the scent of the voters, the black voters, off the scent of the Democratic Party, because the party they talking about Trump is they always make these racial organizations, these racial accusations about Donald Trump. Has anybody ever said that Donald Trump was ever a member of the Ku Klux Klan? And really, when you look at Donald Trump's record, quite frankly, Donald Trump has a very good record as far as his background, because this man has no problem. In fact, nobody was calling him a racist until he ran for president. Blacks were not calling Donald Trump a racist. They were doing that in order to justify they don't plan to move out of the party, the Ku Klux Klan, because the power base of the black politicians in this country is the Democratic Party, and they don't intend to leave that power base, which has been very good to them, but not to their constituents. And I'm trying to think of just a single one up there in the Congress that, about these black representatives and black senators, Scott in South Carolina. You know, Scott not representing anybody. And Cory Booker, Spartacus, quote unquote. I hope they never get on this list here in terms of their longevity, because they're not doing anything up there in Congress. So number two of the longest serving member of Congress was Robert Byrd. Byrd was the one that did the longest filibuster in the Congress, filibustering Civil Rights Bill 64, until Cory Booker covered that up. That's what he was doing when he did 25 minutes and 5 minutes when he filibustered for that amount of time. Here's another person on the list. Byrd was 57 years. Here's one, 56 years. He died in 1972. This is Carl Hayden. He was in both the Senate and the House, and he was there for 53 years combined in both of the two bodies. 53 years, 118 days. And you tell me, what is the person doing up there in Congress? You know, the idea of Congress should be, you know, you're outside the power center, you see something that should be fixed, you think you're qualified to do it, and you want to go up there to Congress with the idea that I can do this problem that I'm now fixated on fixing. I am actually determined to get there and do something with this problem that I have identified is in my wheelhouse. So you go up there and you do that because you that's what you went there to do. But then what is all this other stuff about when you just stay there one campaign after another, and then the man number three behind Byrd, 56 years, 319 days. Can you tell me what the problem is, you voters out here voting for these persons over and over again? Then the next one, number four, 53 years, 118 days. You remember Daniel Inouye, the state that Tulsi Gabbard is from, and she was a very good representative from that state. But you could tell something about Hawaii by the fact that they couldn't sustain her in power. She was just too conservative, too focused on her job task. You know, I think part of the problem we have here, when you look at these persons and longevity and what they did when they were there for the amount of time, you look at what they did all the time they were in power. They're not shaking any bushes up there in Congress and overturning any systems in place when they get there and trying to reform anything. And those that did, the church committee, for example, they were targeted big time by the three-letter organization up there, the FBI, CIA, DIA, and the rest of them. Church had to get out of there because church was pretty serious. And Tulsi Gabbard is very serious. They want these persons out of there. They learn to play ball. There's a guy from Utah, I can't think of his name right now. He ran he couldn't hardly wait to get in there. He's going to go in there and shake some things up. I haven't heard a word from him since he's been there. The new representative they had out of Utah, from a football player. I can't think of his name now. But he's now a career politician. Let's see. We have number 4, 53 years, 118 days. Number 5. Let me go down.
Burgess Owens. Was his name Burgess Owen?
That's him,
Yeah.
John. Yeah, you see how quiet he got up there, Burgess Owens?
Yeah, that's what the football player you're thinking of is Burgess Owens. He played the NFL, Jets, and Raiders, and was elected in 2020 as U.S. representative for Utah's 4th congressional district.
You're right, exactly who he is. And there was so much promise this guy had because he just was so determined to go there. It's like they were bringing these new persons in, and he was laudatorily saying that the new JVs are coming into town and they're going to just do some great things and all of the rest of it. You don't even hear this man not even, they don't even bring him on television anymore because he got in there. He's gotten into the landscape, and you can't even tell he's up there in Washington.
I've seen that happen though in local government though. I mean, people get in the government, and they were nice people, and as soon as they got in there, I seen a woman who was a nice, solid woman. She ran and got into politics, had been married for like 25, 30 years. As soon as she got involved in that circles and stuff, she left her husband, they got divorced. She took up with a much younger man who took the money from the settlement. Her life was in the toilet. It was like politics is this, when people gravitate towards it, they're that type of people, and then they get really easily either seduced or easily commandeered and go in another direction.
Yeah, John, that's a very good point. We have to look at the character, the kind of people that would pursue political power. First of all, I think there's got to be a little bit deranged if your intent is to pursue power. Maybe if your intent in running for office is to gain power, and that's at the top of the list of what you're running for, to wield power. If that's your focus, the wielding of power, I can tell you right now, you should be the last one that should be engrossed with the power that people can put you into a position to have, because if you're running for power, your reason could not be utilitarian, because you must have something on your mind you're trying to accomplish. I don't know anything I could accomplish, quite frankly, in the political arena, because I'd be up there pretty much cursing everybody out, because I know they're not serious, and I couldn't be up there because, really, I know my mentality, and I know that I'm not going to be sitting up there quiet in that rat's nest. That's what it amounts to, that viper's den. And this list that I brought to the studio, there's only 18 on this first page of that list. There's 122 in all, and at 122, 30, the one at the 122 level had 36 years in, and now we're talking about at the top of the list 59 years and some days, and that would be the Dingell record. Folks, I had to tell you something. We have been given term limits by the framers, and it's up to you and me and all the rest of the voters to understand what the framers were trying to do by putting a term limit on their terms, 2-year, 4-year, and 6-year. And our job is to take that custodianship of that term limit and stop returning these persons to office repeatedly, so they're up there 59 years and 21 days, as Dingell was there doing what?
Yeah, and then when you add his dad's time and now his wife's time, that's his dad was part of the FDR administration.
Can we do this?
That era of FDR anyway, you know.
Yeah, can we do this? Can we simply just stop voting for these people after a certain period of time? We don't need to have a law to make us do the right thing. Let's understand these politicians are not up there for any long period of time to serve the American people for no 59 years and 21 days. After a couple of terms, we should have a pretty good handle on what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And don't let them sit up there as career. No politician. We should have no career politicians. And let's turn them out repeatedly until they understand why we sent them there. Because until you do that, that amnesia that you're seeing up there in Washington right now will continue. Okay, this list right here, you need to go and look at it. It's online. Combined U.S. Senate and U.S. House time. And you can see the long list. Look at them in your state. And let's start getting these people out of there. And we get back in charge of this country was intended by the framers. Okay, we got to get out of here again. Until next week, we want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.